Welcome to another episode of Red and Black, where your conservatism is not just the color that you used to. I'm Lenny McAllister, and I'm going to be the official person vetting people to be the next co-host of The View. Now, the problem is you have to give me your voter registration card. Let me make sure it's the right letter behind your name to make sure that you can get the right seat on the stage if your COVID test goes through before you meet Vice President Harris. What say you? I'm going to ask these three wonderful people that I talk to all the time, starting with Melanie Collette, who does not have her water, is eating ice cream at McFlurry, which, by the way, at McFlurry is not even real ice cream. It kind of goes back to the conversation we had before the show as far as not real conservatives, not real beef, and apparently you're not eating real ice cream over there. What do you know that's really, really real?
I'm really, really real. I'm a real conservative. Like, you guys don't even watch Tucker. Like, what am I even doing with you? I'm just, what are you even doing with your life if you're not watching Tucker? I don't understand.
I can tell you,
that's my boy. Like, I love Tucker.
I can tell you what I'm doing with my life right now when I'm not watching Tucker. I'm taking you off the screen. I'm introducing the other two people in Red and Black. That's what I'm doing. So let me go to the person right beside me to my left, which is Dr. Metzler. Can you explain to me what I'm doing with my life other than watching Tucker?
Well, I think a number of things. You're making things happen in the charter school movement. You are throwing shade, among other things. And I think in some cases, shade needs to be thrown. And so, excellent.
Thank you. Hey, you, Mr. Charles. What would you say I'm doing with my life? And you can even tell me what you're doing with your life as well, because your life is much more interesting than mine.
What I'm doing with my life is not watching Tucker Carlson. And what you're doing a lot of big things over there with the charter schools in Pennsylvania. I actually name dropped you earlier on a broadcast for Liberty Nation because we were talking about education, and I kind of talked about some of the things that you told me about why inner city schools don't do as well. So yeah, you're doing things, and I'm making sure that I don't watch Tucker Carlson.
Well, I appreciate that. What Jeff didn't say is when he name dropped me, he said that mother bleep 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 owes me $5. Lenny McAllister. That's not bad. A name drop. That's getting mad at somebody.
And I'm just gonna say this real quick: Tucker Carlson is not a conservative. He's a right winger. Damn it.
Yeah. Well, that he is. And
he doesn't want unlimited government.
Yeah, I mean, but look, listen, but you guys are talking about Tucker. If you've ever been on Sean Hannity's plane, he serves KFC. Just saying.
Oh, snap.
KFC is a bomb. So, like,
I might mess with Sean Hannity now. I don't watch him either, but there's no real reason for it. I just don't watch cable news. But I could rock with Sean Hannity maybe.
Yeah, but get on Sean's plane because he serves KFC.
No, that'd be the only reason I'd rock with him.
Oh, precisely.
Oh, and he likes steak.
Yeah, he does.
I thought it was steak and lobster, not steak and chicken.
I'm not as big a fan of Hannity as I am of Tucker. Like, Tucker brings the sarcasm with the right-wingism. You don't want to call it conservatism. That's fine. But the right-wingism, I think Tucker brings it. You guys don't like Tucker, like, I don't even know, like, I have to rethink this whole relationship.
Well,
we're too uppity.
Well, not only that, but you're not exactly the person after the last couple of shows to be talking to anybody about relationships. That kind of starts going down a path where you said that you weren't going to talk to with us on this week.
That conversation was great. I'm glad that you brought that up.
In relationships.
That was beautiful.
I'm not going to talk relationships. I actually had something very funny happen this week. So the guy that I'm dating is a Democrat, right?
What?
Is it?
And you're getting on us for not watching Tucker Carlson?
Wait,
come on, please.
Esther, this is the big one. Esther, this is the big one.
We're dating.
Oh my goodness.
And we've been dating for like 6 months, right?
I feel like I just found out that the Pope smokes crack.
Yeah.
I've dated a number of conservative men, and they were so mean. I was like, I'm gonna try something different, and he like lets me live my life, and it's fine.
Well, yeah, because But that is exactly what Democrats do. They you. That's the problem.
But in a relationship situation, he's like, do whatever you like. Enjoy your life.
Do you, boo?
Be a Republican. You know, he watches my hits on TV and listens to them on the radio, and he's like, that was all spin. What were you even talking about? Like, what?
Well, at least he's a sane person, because with a lot of leftists out here, like they don't.
He's not a leftist. He's a run-of-the-mill Democrat.
Okay, so he's a regular person then.
Right.
Okay.
Run-of-the-mill Democrats don't exist anymore. There's like only 3 of them: the person you're dating, Joe Manchin, and Senator Sinema. That's it.
That's it. No. And people are like, oh my God, her? Like that crazy right-winger, you're dating her? Yeah.
The person that calls McFlurry's real ice cream, yeah, I can understand why he would,
This McFlurry is banging. I don't care what anybody says. And so is Tucker Carlson. Y'all are crazy. Tucker and Gutfeld. Like, why? What are you doing?
I like Gutfeld.
If you're not.
I like Gutfeld.
I like Greg.
Yeah. But you guys don't like Tucker? Like.
See, that's gonna have to be a whole episode.
Oh, that's a whole show.
Like, I adore Tucker. He's sarcastic, my favorite. And he calls leftists out on a regular basis. Like, why would you not like him?
Mm-hmm.
I don't understand.
That's going to have to be a segment.
That needs to be a segment. That needs to be an entire segment.
Well, hold on. Is that becoming a segment, or it needs to be a segment? Because it sounds like a threat that you two don't want to follow through with.
Oh no,
we've already got stuff to talk about. I want to derail from that.
Yeah, we don't, because on this segment with Tucker, there will be discussions about, I don't know, Heritage Foundation, Keiko James, conversations.
Yeah, that's when smoke starts coming. That's when smoke starts coming. Because that's when you go from real conservatives versus right-wingers. That's when you go through, TV personalities versus people that actually know public policy and do the work.
Well,
which there are 2 different things.
Yeah,
there are popularity contests and there's public policy.
And
those are conversations.
I don't
hate
different
conversations.
Yeah, I don't hate on Tuck. He's a prep school boy. I'm a prep school boy, but it's a whole lot of drama. We'll talk.
Let me actually,
I'm not gonna let y'all defame Tucker.
Oh, we ain't gonna defame Tucker.
We're talking proof.
We gonna come with hashtag facts.
Can we talk about a real? Hold on. Can we talk about a real conservative first, please?
No.
Rather than going into the Fox News drama rabbit hole that we're slowly descending upon down into Alice and Mad Hatter and Queen of Hearts. Whoever wants to play those 3 roles, Dr. Messer's putting his finger up. He wants to say something.
Yeah, but so let me just say, so last week, many people, once we posted the show on Melanie's timeline, many people did not comment on the substance, but on my pinky. And so why, when I'm drinking wine, I raise my pinky? First of all, y'all need to understand, this is a stemless glass, because y'all don't know about no wine. So this is a
y'all ain't got no culture.
Glass.
That's what's going on.
And that's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
So I just need to say, when you're drinking a Pinot Noir that is 2005 and has been aged, pinky is appropriate. Carry on.
Word.
Because I posted last week's show on my timeline, and a bunch of my conservative friends, men,
black men.
And y'all want to know why I'm not dating a conservative. This is
see, Dr. Messer's being diplomatic. Black man, no, these are some niggas.
Niggas, right?
Niggas got a problem with people raising their pinky.
Right.
What to do with his pinky? Why does he have his pinky up while he's drinking? Well, I said this is our of quality content here, and y'all are concerned with what Dr. Metzler's doing with his pinky. Like, what is wrong with you?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was kind of crazy.
I'm
I was
sorry.
like, just click the link and watch the show, okay?
There you go. So, Mr. McAllister, you were talking about real conservatives. Sorry.
You talking to me?
Yeah.
You talking to me?
Okay, you can come back now.
Okay, I just, was climbing out of the rabbit hole, trying to get up. Clothes got all dirty. All right. Can we talk about a real conservative now and not raising pinkies up or down and making people feel all bougie or whatever, or putting up for right wingers that go after real conservatives? Yes, I threw a little bit of shade out there, just telling a little bit of truth. Can we talk about real conservatives for just a second? Because we lost one this week in Colin Powell. And you talk about, and this actually kind of goes into the argument that we were talking about earlier on the show. One, Colin Powell was a gentleman. Number two, he was an American hero. Number three, he was an African-American hero. And number four, he caught a hell of a lot of shade from right-wingers for being a true conservative. And to be quite blunt, the Republican Party, if it were moving more towards a General Powell direction, would probably have more seats in the House, probably would control the Senate, and might still have a Republican president in 2021 if that were the path we went down. And I'm going to go with the historian of the group, which means that don't count me, that don't count you, that don't count you. That's going to end up being him. What say you, sir?
Yeah, well, absolutely. Listen, General Powell was exactly what the American dream is supposed to be about. A number of right-wingers took the position that, oh, he's a warmonger, he lied about the war in Iraq. Look, at the end of the day, what he espoused were true conservative principles, which we don't see today. And so I was intensely saddened by his death, the announcement of his death. But as he said in his last interview, don't be concerned about me. I'm good. His concern was always about country. And the strongest woman at his side, Alma Powell, ensured that, in fact, what was done is that he served his country, which is why she was absolutely sure that he should not run for president of the United States. And so conservatives, and here's the other thing, this whole, and I wouldn't say conservatives as much as right-wingers, have we gotten to a point in America where someone's death is used as a laughing stock and a talking point and clickbait? The answer is yes. It is sad. That is not conservatism. It is certainly not being patriots, and it's quite disparaging.
Melanie, you've been involved in the party for quite some time as well. Give me a little bit of reflection on not only the passing of General Powell, but also what Dr. Metzler said in regards to how people are reacting to this, which, look, in 2021, it's a very different reaction than we might have seen even 10 years ago, let alone 25 years ago when somebody like this passes away.
Indeed. I don't disagree with anything that Dr. Metzler said. I when it comes to people passing, I tend to take the biblical approach, is that your debt is paid once you pass away. The Bible says that the wages that sin pays is death, and once you've passed, your debt is paid. So for anyone to make any kind of disparaging remarks about Colin Powell after his death, I think it is highly distasteful, inappropriate, and unbiblical, quite frankly, an unchristian thing to do. And I was very disappointed to see the number of people that took the opportunity of his passing to, throw shade on him about what happened with his testimony, on that one particular day where he was really misled and has commented many times on regretting that testimony. And once a person is passed, in my opinion, you should have nothing but positive things to say, because like I said, from the biblical perspective, he's paid his debt once he's passed. So that's that.
Jeff, let me ask this, and I'm sorry, it is going to be a little bit of shade throwing with this, but a lot of the people that criticized Colin Powell over the last 10 to 15 years, and a lot of people that were throwing some shade at him now, talk about past sins and all this, that, and the other, are the same people that are supporting Donald Trump, that literally can ignore the past sins of a dude that's, one, still alive, and two, has a book full of stuff over the last 50 years that you can get on and go about, but yet they still find ways to justify, but the tax cuts, or but school choice. And there are good things to say, but if you can ignore a lot of flaws with one, but when a guy dies, you're going to hit them over the head with the one thing that he already said he regrets and has said he's sorry repeatedly. And by the way, somebody that kind of put his body on the line multiple times for his country. I mean, to Dr. Metzler's point, how the heck did we get here, and how the hell do we get out of here?
Yeah, here's the thing. People who are grave dancing with Colin Powell, especially on the right, they have absolutely no principles. And I'm saying that straight out. They will say, oh, he was a neocon. He led us into a war that we shouldn't have been in. No, you guys don't care about that. I know for a fact that you don't, because Trump continued the wars in Yemen and even escalated them. He even prevented legislation from, or measures that were designed to get us out of Yemen. He still continued the wars in Syria. Yeah, he drew down troops in Afghanistan, but he did nothing about the wars in Yemen that have killed men, women, and children. And when he dies, you guys are not going to bring this up. You guys are not going to criticize him for this. You're going to be totally fine with it. The only reason why you're pretending to care about Colin Powell's role in the war on terror is because he didn't wear a MAGA hat, because he voted for Obama and he didn't like Trump. And those are the only two reasons. Your reasons are not based on principles. Your reasons are based on politics. So I have no respect for that. I can respect somebody who could say, yeah, I hate Colin Powell and Trump. Okay, we can talk about that because you actually have principles. But if you don't apply your principles consistently, then you don't believe in them in the first place. And for the people who, there are people who just jumped on his death to exploit it. They weren't necessarily hating on Colin Powell, but they're like, oh, he was vaccinated. Yes, now we can use this to say, oh, he was vaccinated and he still got COVID, so the vaccine doesn't work. Those people are lower than whale shit. I don't care. I mean, it's one thing if you just mention it, but you can tell that people were just using this to just push forward their arguments against the COVID vaccine. There are better arguments to make, and there are better ways to make that argument. I may not even disagree with what you're saying, but you don't use a man's death right after he dies. It'd be one thing if it were weeks from now and then they just referred back to it. Okay, fine. You do it on the 2 seconds after the news is announced that he died. You jump on that. You guys are sick. I'm sorry. And I know that most conservatives weren't doing this, but it's sick. And I think that people don't even realize what they're doing. I don't think they're doing this intentionally. And the last thing that I'll say is that we have gotten so stupid on the right. We've gotten so into team sports. We got so much into you have to support Trump no matter what, that we can't even take lessons from Colin Powell's life, especially when it concerns the Black community. Yes. He was a Republican that was actually respected by the Black community before he voted for Obama, even before he was under Bush, and even while he was under Bush. They had some people who didn't like him under Bush, but in general, he had a level of respect with the Black community. He could talk to the Black community without being, called all kinds of Uncle Toms and coons. Yeah, you always have some morons who do that, but in general, he was well respected. He was active in his community. He gave a TED talk about this. I remember watching it a while ago, talking about him working with Black men or Black kids to try to get them to get to a point where they can get out of the hood, and imparting the military lessons that he learned. He was well respected because he cared about the Black community. He didn't use his platform to coon and to bash the Black community. He criticized the Black community when it needed to be criticized, but he also loved Black people. That's the type of person that we need. So we can disagree with his whole thing with the war. I disagree with it. I think he made a mistake. I think what he did was wrong. And he's probably made other mistakes all over his career, but he's also made a lot of great contributions. And we are so polarized that we have gotten to the point to where we act like imbeciles and we can't learn from people even when we disagree with certain things that they did.
So at what point in time, Dr. Master, to bring it back to you initially, this seems to be getting worse. I mean, we can do this if you go back and you look at other points of time in American history, 2 years ago, 4 years ago, 6 years ago, 8 years ago, it seems like we did things a little better than we are now. It seems like we really are going in the wrong direction with these types of things. So even when a great man like this passes away, there are not those lessons learned. Where do you think we're going to be able to sit there and even in this moment say, okay, let's stand on this. We could stand on him as another great Black trailblazer in America, or African-American Republican trailblazer in America, or military veteran trailblazer in America, or just an American story of building yourself up, building a career, and going to the highest heights. When can we leverage that? Number one. And number two, I'm going to actually bounce it off of you and Melody with the second question, because I want to go back to what you brought up in regards to him running for the presidency. And actually, let me scrap the first question and go to that second question, which is simply this. Where would America be if he ran for president in the 90s with all that class and cachet? That's probably a deeper question, Dr. Metz. So I'm going to ask you first.
Right.
Could our American society be a lot better on race if he ended up running in 96, whether he wins or loses? Maybe we're better off as a result of it. Maybe that was another big mistake that maybe he regretted, because I wish I would have seen that in 96.
Yeah, well, I think we would have been in a much better place. But here is the thing when we talk about Colin Powell that people don't talk about. They never talk about Alma Powell. Alma was extremely clear from the beginning that he should not run for president because she knew he would be maligned. She knew that Republicans would go after him. She knew all of those things. And I think we would be in a much better place had he run for president of the United States. I think we would be at the point where we can have discussions without attacking people. We could actually had solutions, because the one thing about him, he was extremely solutions driven. But as it relates to, and it's always fascinating to me that Americans who aren't perfect themselves want to have the perfect person elected to be president. It is hypocritical. It is stupid. And at the end of the day, had he been president of the United States, I think we would be in such a much better place. The whole weapons of mass destruction thing, he said over and over again, I regretted that. I relied on poor intelligence. Secretary Rice has said the same thing. And I'm gonna tell y'all right now, keep Secretary Rice's name out y'all mouth. Okay, stop. We ain't doing that. Okay, that is a red line for me, because all of y'all talking about when she was a rhino, when she, look, no, we're not going there. Keep your name out. Keep her name out your mouth.
So let's talk about two things about her. Number one, let's use the bridge. And Melanie, let's talk a little bit about, again, another Black Republican, highly decorated, highly talented, highly intelligent, also highly controversial, and highly maligned. So you go from the first Black Secretary of State to the second Black Secretary of State, who was also the second woman Secretary of State. And she went through you talk about nastiness.
Oh.
She went through, the accusations about her and President Bush 43 were just ridiculous and absurd, the types of things she went through. The caricatures, the political cartoons, the mammy-isms that she had to go through. People talk about how folks talked about Barack Obama in 2007 becoming the president, and those memes, which were horrible, and the watermelons on the White House lawn when he became president. I get that. But Condi Rice went through some pretty horrible things just a couple of years earlier. You know, Melanie, when you start talking about this, why, other than racism, and if it's not anything other than racism, then okay, fine. But she went through it from both Republicans and Democrats, conservatives and right-wingers, left-wingers and Democrats or liberals. Why such animus for somebody that is clearly astute, clearly knows her stuff, and has been on the world stage showing her stuff for decades?
Absolutely. I cannot say enough about Condoleezza Rice. She's one of my absolute heroes. Grew up in the segregated South, speaks 6 languages, is a concert pianist, has a doctorate. I can't say enough about Condoleezza Rice. Like I said, she's absolutely one of my heroes, and I have zero tolerance for anyone saying anything negative about Condi Rice. That's, you know, whenever I refer to her, I'm like, that's my girl. Condi Rice is my girl because of what she represents as a Black woman. And I think that part of the issue why people have issues with her is because of all of her success and what she represents, that she overcame growing up in a segregated South, had 2, you know, parents that were very intelligent and successful, and she was successful in her own right. And I've listed some of her accomplishments, and I think that's why she gets shade from both people on the left and the right. And I think why she'll never run for president, because she's just too brilliant to do such a thing, which is sad, because I think that the government, that the United States could certainly use someone with her skill set to lead the country. But she'll never do it because she's too smart for that.
All right, so do you hear what we're saying here, Jeff? I mean, first I want you to hear that comment, and then we'll get back to Condi Rice. We're saying that literally, we're talking about people that were too classy, Colin Powell, and now too smart, Condi Rice, to run for the highest office in the land. That's the most geopolitically sensitive position on the planet. What does that say about the American society today, where first of all, we care about diversity as much as we do. You talk about a double minority that has a doctorate, that has been astute on geopolitical matters for 40, 50 years, but she's not supposed to be the type of person that we would consider for the presidency because everybody hates her.
I mean, it says that we've got a lot of work to do on many levels, whether it's race or just our political culture. And I think that, I mean, I don't know when we will ever get back to having politicians who actually know something, and politicians who actually know and care about policy or what have you. I mean, and again, I get the whole Iraq war thing, but it's like Colin Powell and Condoleezza Rice said, they had bad intelligence. What people won't bring up is that the United States were not the only ones who believed that Saddam Hussein had weapons of mass destruction. The United Kingdom did, France did, Russia did, I believe Australia did. They all came to that conclusion separate from us with their own intelligence agencies. Right. Russia and France didn't even want us to invade Iraq, and they believed he had weapons of mass destruction. So were there probably lies told? Yeah, probably. But I don't think that every single thing that they thought was an actual lie. I know it's sexy to say, oh, they lied us into the war. Maybe. I mean, they probably stressed some things here and there, but I think they actually believed a lot of what they were saying. Doesn't make it right, but still, I think there's a difference. But I mean, the fact that people like Condoleezza Rice will experience racism, and Barack Obama and Colin Powell, you know, it just says something about our society in that, you know, we don't always care when it's being done to the other guy. I mean, you didn't see Democrats and leftists defending Condoleezza Rice when people were racist against her. These people love racism, as long as it's directed at somebody that they don't like.
Yes.
So it's just part of how we've become so much about team sports. Like, it's okay if my guy does it, but if it's somebody, if the other guy does it, then I'm going to figure out why it's wrong, and I will do so with no sense of irony, without any sense of, am I being a hypocrite? It's infuriating, because I think it's not just annoying. I think it's destructive, because if we can't even call out people who agree with us politically, and tamp down on that, then where are we going? I mean, where is this headed?
So I guess the question then becomes, I'll throw it out to all three of you. You look at Colin Powell, you look at Condi Rice, they should be people that accomplished all these wonderful things that we say that we want people to accomplish, right? So, look at Colin Powell, he's a war hero, and he's intelligent, and he's classy, and he's a statesman, yada, yada, yada. But stay in your place, Negro. Condi Rice, all these other wonderful things, and has a civil rights background coming from Birmingham. But you know what they say, when you got the black woman too close to the white man in power, it's scandal in reverse. Go look up Kerry Washington, everybody.
She must be,
Bedwench.
Exactly.
Bedwench, yeah.
Bedwench.
Yeah.
Right.
Bedwench.
So, and nobody wants to, people literally did say that.
Yeah,
so
they did.
With that said,
and they knew it wasn't true. They knew it wasn't true. They were lying. There's no way that they actually believed it.
No.
When you're talking about these two, why won't, first of all, at some point in time, we got to be able to call it out for what it is. Because look, the last two presidents we had, the presidency was a Lifetime Achievement Award. We just sat here and talked about why two highly qualified black folks should have never even considered running for the presidency. When do we, whether it's conservative, liberal, or anything else along those lines, start really digging into something and calling it for what it is? We've been sitting in the era of George Floyd and Ferguson now for almost 10 years. And yet, when it comes to real substantive things, when it comes to race, we haven't quite gotten there yet. People forget Ferguson tore apart this country. That was 2014. We're almost in 2022. Kids that were 8 years old then in Ferguson are about to graduate from high school. And yet we're still talking about the same exact thing. And the standards for black and white are so different. And we're talking about that through not only how Powell and Rice were treated, but how their careers ended up. They still hit a glass ceiling that Hillary Clinton didn't need to hit. Joe Biden kept bumping his head off of and eventually got through. And Donald Trump was like, whatever, I don't even have to study for debates and I'll still become president. And he did.
Well, so a couple of things. I'm not sure that we, other than a forum like this, I'm not sure that we have that conversation. Because in fact, on the one hand, you have people who are saying Democrats are overly sensitive. And on the right side of the equation, y'all talking about race. Race is always an issue. I don't see color. I don't see race. I just see people. Sit your ass down somewhere with that.
But they don't see the seat to sit down in, Dr. Matthews, so they can't do that.
Do not. Sit your ass on the floor. They don't see that.
I think. Now, I think I'm on the right of most everybody here, and I think that right wingers are not saying that they don't see color. I think that they aspire to a world where we don't have to talk about color in every bleeping conversation. Like,
no.
Like we're just over. I'll speak for myself. I'm over talking about me being brown and accomplishing stuff.
Yeah,
like,
but see,
I'm over it.
well,
I'm so over it.
Well,
my brown skin is some kind of disability.
Yeah,
like,
no,
it's annoying.
No, I'm over it as well. Listen, I'm the guy who goes to Oxford University and somebody comes up to me and say, "Oh, they must have a very good affirmative action program." White boy says that to me. I said, "Oh, that must be the reason you got in, white boy." Okay, and so from my perspective, I'm over talk. The issue, as I always say, is not whether you see race or color, it's how you respond to it. So don't tell me you're colorblind, because you're not. My question is, when you see color, how do you respond to it? Do you say, "Oh, look, I never say I'm the first black person who, look, I'm black. Hello." That's the bottom line. But I think on the right, part of the conversation is if you start acknowledging the existence of difference, then people assume that you're caught in the victim mentality. I am nobody's victim, never been, never will be. But again, the question, when you have somebody like Condoleezza Rice, who when Condi in Bush 1 is the Russian translator, Secret Service comes up to her and say, ma'am, you have to move back. Bush steps in and said, what? You got to move. What? She's my translator. Oh, we didn't know that. So in a situation relative to, first of all, you Secret Service, you ain't know that? Okay, we got another problem.
Read your briefings. Never mind. Don't worry about reading your briefings because you no longer work here. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, I think you're right. I am not obsessed with color. I'm not, but again, from the right perspective, yes, we're tired of talking about it. We're tired of attaching race or color as a disability. My question is then, what are you doing relative to the solution? I don't care who started it. I don't care about none of that. My question is, what are you doing relative to it? Just like I say, I want to go to Piggly Wiggly. Piggly Wiggly still doesn't exist no more. So I have to find another solution. That's my only point.
But
here's my thing, though. Here's my thing.
Go ahead, Jeff.
Yeah. I mean, I understand all this. I mean, but people on the right can be disingenuous. Like when Melanie says that she's tired of talking about skin color, I believe her. When Dr. Metzler says the same thing, I believe him.
Yeah.
But I don't believe the rest of y'all Negroes and whoever. Here's why. Here's why. Because if I were to write a story,
you talking about me?
What? Well, you didn't say it. So, I mean, if that's how you feel it, I believe you too. But here's the thing. Here's how I know that these people don't mean what they say, and they probably don't even realize it. If I were to post a story about the first Black valedictorian from whatever high school and specify that they're Black or a Black person doing something positive, what's the response going to be? Why do you have to mention the skin color? Why can't it just be an American? Okay. But if I post something about a Black person robbing a bank, or if I post something about Black on Black crime,
preach,
I will never, ever get that same response, that same energy from conservatives asking why I'm not calling it American on American crime and not Black on Black crime. So that's my issue with that. If that's how you really feel, then apply it consistently. But no, they like it when the narrative is negative about Black people because it makes them feel better. The reason it makes them feel better is because they can say, oh, it's Black people who are the problem and that racism has no impact. Yeah, I said it.
Melanie, why are you making that face? Go ahead. Go ahead.
You know I'm right.
I think that is completely false. I don't think that's true.
I can prove it.
That's completely false. I don't think that's true at all. I don't think that people who are not Black fundamentally enjoy or assume that whenever there's an issue, there's Black folks involved. Whenever that's not
what he said.
What I'm saying is that if I post something negative about Black people, or I talk about Black people doing something negative, they don't come at me asking why I'm specifying their race. They don't have any problem with any mentions of Black on Black crime.
But why are you specifying the race? I mean,
because I don't buy that stuff. I think it's okay to acknowledge when a Black person does something good, and I think it's okay to acknowledge when a Black person does something bad.
I don't think we should be acknowledging the color at all. I think we should be acknowledging the action. You know, my ex-husband is white, and when we used to watch the news, we used to play a little demented game, like what color is the criminal? Like when we were watching the news.
We're not supposed to. Melanie,
and back in the day, the media had no problem mentioning the race if it was a Black person, if you remember.
That's right.
They used to do it back in the day.
Wait a minute.
You don't think that's funny? I think it's freaking hilarious.
No, I think that what you guys are doing is funny. That's a funny game.
20-second timeout. You promised me that you would not bring up any relationships on this show.
And how fun it is to be in a relationship.
I said, Melanie, please, don't bring up the ex-husband. You said, honey, I'd never do that. We're recording the show too late this week. It will make your brain fry. I'm not gonna do that.
But it was fun.
I mean, that is funny. But I'm just saying the reality is that a lot of conservatives, not all, but a lot of conservatives want to be colorblind if it involves something positive. But if it involves something negative, that colorblind stuff goes out the window.
I fundamentally disagree with that.
I can show you the comments that I get.
Okay, so Melanie, what is your definition of colorblind?
I think the whole sugar. That's why I had him on my lap. He's barking. Anyway,
he agrees with me.
My definition of colorblind. First of all, I think the whole issue of colorblindness is BS. Like nobody is colorblind. As soon as you see a person, you see what color they are. So there's no such thing as blindness unless you're literally blind. I think that it comes from a positive place, from a positive assumption. Like I don't make assumptions about you because of the color of your skin. I think that that's where that's supposed to come from. But I think it's buffoonery, and that people are fooling themselves when they think that they don't make assumptions based on the color of a person's skin. I think it's very sad. And it's upsetting. Like I think affirmative action has been a cloud over my entire career.
Answer the question that the counselor asked you. The counselor asked you a specific question. Counselor, you may redirect.
What is your definition of colorblind? Don't let me call out your contradictions.
The definition of colorblind is not making assumptions about a person based on the color of their skin. I think that's what people mean when they say colorblind.
Okay. Okay. That's interesting.
But I think it's inaccurate. I think that that's like their goal, but I think that it's not realistic.
Okay, so but see, here's the problem. Here's the problem. We don't live in goals. We live in reality. We don't live in ideal. We live in reality. When somebody comes up to me, for example, I am in the lobby conducting a big meeting. I'm meeting my client for the first time. I am here with my assistant, who's a young white guy. He goes over to my assistant and says, Dr. Metzler, what a pleasure to meet you.
Oh, no.
Wait. So then my assistant said, it's actually him. He comes over. So I'm so sorry, Dr. Metzler, from talking to you on the phone, I thought you were taller.
Oh, no.
I said, dude,
I
really?
bet that happens all the time.
Yeah, I said, dude, really? Really?
I teach computer science as an adjunct professor at a college. I'm standing outside the room. One professor comes out who happens to be a black male, is coming out of the room. And I said, you can just leave the door open. And he said, oh, well, usually I shut it until the professor gets here. And I'm like, the professor's here.
Yeah, but the issue.
And he says to me, this is a brother. He says to me, well, usually professors who work in STEM are older white guys. So I just didn't think that you were the professor. And I'm like,
that's internalized racism.
Yeah.
I was like, it's too brute. Like, you're supposed, like, we're supposed to be.
Yeah,
that was sexist too.
Yeah, but this proves my point. Colorblind, this notion of colorblind is pure and simple bullshit.
I agree.
That's what it is. The issue is not whether you see color. There is nothing wrong with seeing color. It's how you respond to it. When
you make judgments about it.
Exactly. When my children are in the grocery store, and they're trying to point out to me, well, that guy over there, do I have to say to them, which one? The one with the bag? No, the black one or the white one? That's not the issue. So on the right, we're getting into this conversation about we don't see color. Hell yeah, you see color. That's not the issue.
What they don't want is this. They don't want the burden of talking about how much racism has permeated through the American society and how much racism has shaped American history. That's the issue. Because when you start having that conversation, that's when you could talk about racism in every aspect of American life. And that makes them nervous. It doesn't make them racist, but it does say that, look, this country that you thought was so perfect is not as perfect as you thought it was. It can still be moving towards a more perfect union. You can admit that, but to say that race hasn't touched housing, economics, education, employment, healthcare, criminal justice, politics, elections, everything. You can't, what foods you get, where you have supermarkets, are they close to you? Do you live in a food desert? We can go on and on and on. Whoa, hold on. I'll let you talk for a while. Give me a second. What many Americans, including conservatives and right-wingers, what they don't want to talk about is the fact that if you really start peeling back the onion of American racism, you could sit here and talk about how its tentacles have been in everything in this society since it became a country, and the very privileges that some have come from that. Now, that is what you can consider to be called critical race theory. Understand how America was formed through the lens of people that were on the other side of that privilege, without saying, you could do that without saying that America is a horrible country or America is not a land of opportunity. But people can't make that critical thought in their brain and move forward from there. They'd much rather you say, oh my God, why are we talking about race so much?
Well,
and that's where we get in trouble.
Because I would argue, I would push back and argue and say that it has much more to do with your socioeconomic status than it has to do.
It does not. And you want to know what your socioeconomic, hold on. You know where your socioeconomic status came from? When you've been redlined, when you can't go to certain schools, when you can't get certain jobs, when you can't vote for certain people, and you can't do certain things in your life, and you're going to die 15 years younger? You know where that's coming from? It's generally coming from race. So you can't sit there and blame it on socioeconomics and ignore the racism that led to the socioeconomics today. That's disingenuous or extremely naive. Now, I'm not saying which one you get to pick, but if you're not going to sit there and say that the foundation of racism has led to some of, if not most of, the socioeconomic issues that we're facing today, where the average worth of a Black woman is $10, and the average worth of a single white woman is about about $45,000 to $75,000 in 2021, and not attach the history of racism to it, it's literally starting to blame the victim. It's, well, you know, if you just got a better education, well, we've been in these poor school districts for 4 generations, or we can't get school choice, or we don't have generational wealth. It is very hard to take the socioeconomic path and separate it from racism if you're talking about Black people. I push that part because you can't do that.
I'm going to keep it 100 with you. It's hard for me to identify with that as a Black woman who me and my sister were the only Black kids in an all-white elementary school, because we moved from Philly to an all-white area. We were the only Black kids there. Our first experience was, you came from Philadelphia, you must not be educated enough. They tried to hold us back a year. So my mom insisted we were tested into our grade. When we left, we were the highest achievers in the entire school. Literally. Year 1, I was the highest achiever. The year after me, my younger sister was the highest achiever.
Melanie, I appreciate all that. But hold on.
What I'm saying is, it has to do with your location and your socioeconomic situation. That did not, me being Black didn't stop me from being
are we going to talk about individual stories? Because I got a guy from Oxford on this show too. Or I got a guy that's an educated guy. Are we talking about individual stories, or are we talking about national trends?
Yeah,
if you talk about national trends,
I don't think that
those numbers will show you.
Yeah, I don't think that the exceptions disprove the rule. I mean, there are a lot of Black people who have been successful.
Yes,
tons of them.
Yes.
But in general, I mean, if you look at the disparities, it's less likely for Black people because of what has happened in the past. And I agree. Two things can be true at once. Yeah, our country has a very sordid history of racism that has impact even today, and we have also taken many steps forward. We have taken significant steps forward.
Yes.
I just think that we have more work to do. Those two things can be true at once.
Right.
I agree.
I mean, it's undeniable that the impact of redlining, Jim Crow, and all that stuff still has effects as of today. It didn't just go away once they were made illegal. As a matter of fact, a lot of them still continued even when they were made illegal. And you know what? A lot of these things are still racist policies. And guess who's putting them into place? It's Democrats. I mean, gun control is racist. Democrats love gun control.
Yes.
I mean, there are a lot of things that Democrats are doing
that
are designed to keep Black people down.
There are similarly situated white folks that find themselves in the same situation that has nothing to do with the color of their skin. It's because of their socioeconomic situation. And they don't have access to education either. They don't have access. My dad was a PhD. They don't have access to a parent that was well educated because their parents were not well educated. Has nothing to do with the color of their skin. They're also in a crappy situation that has nothing to do with racism. They're white and unsuccessful, but they're also poor, which means they probably go to a poor school district. Probably are not getting as good an education as I got because I happen to be in a school district that's mostly white.
Melanie, hold on, Melanie. There were statistics that showed that white men with a high school education or slightly below that had a better employment rate during the recession in particular than Black men with a college degree. And if you go look at the employment numbers now, they rival each other. So I want you to think about this. A white male that has a high school education or slightly less has just as much of an opportunity as a Black man with a college degree, but you're telling me that it's more about socioeconomic levels and race is not having a major determining factor in that, and dare I say, more so than socioeconomic levels based on the history of this country? I think that's just skirting past the truth a little bit. I understand trying to be colorblind and treating people equally, which you could treat people equally and not be colorblind or be blind to some of these facts.
I understand what you're saying about the facts. I just, in my opinion, feel like, and I think it's maybe my experience with kids in schools and et cetera, that you have white kids who have the same plight. And because you're Black, you get access to affirmative action. You get access to more funding. You get access to a lot of things that poor white kids don't get access to. They just don't because they're not Black.
Okay, so I'm trying to understand your argument here. So is your argument that the issue is not race, but socioeconomic status? So let's start
I think that it's not race as much as it is socioeconomic.
So what do you mean not as much?
Plays much more of a role than your actual race does, because I know plenty of highly successful Black folks, and the reason why they were highly successful is because they had some money.
Okay, so let me understand. So when you say not as much, are you then comparing apples to oranges or apples to apples?
I'm not sure I understand the question.
Okay, so what you're saying is the issue is not race, but socioeconomic status. Do I hear that correctly?
Yes, that's what I'm saying.
Okay, and so from the perspective, if you look at Alabama, if you look at Tennessee, Arkansas, Kentucky, etc., what you find is that, in fact, those states, their gross domestic product is what? What's their gross domestic product?
I don't know.
Federal taxes. Okay, so they're taking more than they are contributing. West Virginia, as an example, they are contributing less to the economic pot. Fine. Okay. So from a socioeconomic standpoint, though, has there been a historical issue relative to the socioeconomic status of whites that is comparable or at least remotely related to the issue of blacks?
That's hard for me. It's hard for me to say.
Okay.
That's hard for me to.
Well, which is,
I'm sure that the statistics probably are in your favor on that. I hear that they are. I've done my own research on it in my PhD program. I see what the statistics say that they are, but my argument is like I said, I find that I have white kids as an educator. I have white students and black students that are similarly situated that have the very same problem. And I have black students that when they're situated as a white student does, with the money and the access that white people do, that they do just fine. They're not having the same issues that other black folks are having.
well, look, I think that socioeconomics is part of the equation, but I think your argument that it is similarly situated is flawed because the socioeconomic history in this country doesn't validate that. And so, yes, they have always been. So let's look at welfare, for example. So statistically, who is on welfare? Who gets more welfare? Blacks or whites?
White, but I think it's because there's more of them. So,
okay. And so then why is the narrative that black people are welfare queens, welfare cheats? Why is that then the narrative?
because people don't know what the actual numbers are. Mm-hmm. And they don't understand how to read a study. They don't understand study sampling. They don't listen to the
pundits. Right. There you go. They listen to the pundits. So hold on. Speaking of pundits, what I'm going to do, because I'm not going to stop this conversation. I'm saying we're leaving for this week of Red and Black because y'all don't need to know about the rest of this stuff. This will be a two-parter. We will send more of this later. I'm cutting it off now. TCNGB, take care and God bless. Goodbye.